Tonight we're going to be talking about the use of dogs for emergency recovery and response. And we have three amazing panelists with us this evening. We have, first up is Jill Kukas from Hope Animal Assisted Crisis Response. Then we have Aline Carr from the City of Virginia Beach. And then we have our own Amy Lane, who is the Blue Ridge MRC coordinator with VDH. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Jill. So Jill, if you want to, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you want to start sharing your presentation, we'll get started.
Looks good. You're muted.
It says I'm muted by host.
You're fine. You're unmuted now.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jill Kukas, and I'm honored to talk to you tonight about my organization, Hope Animal Assisted Crisis Response. I've been a member since 2002, and I've had 3 certified dogs through Hope. Mark, how do I do this?
Should be in your bottom left. And if you put your, there you go, your mouse over the screen, is there it goes, should advance there, clicking on. There we go. But you're muted again. Sorry, Jill.
Our mission is to provide comfort and encouragement through animal-assisted support to individuals affected by crisis and disasters. So we do not represent ourselves as first responders or mental health counselors. Our dog handler teams and team leaders are trained to help comfort people suffering after a traumatic event. Hope AACR is a national all-volunteer 501 nonprofit corporation. It's nationwide. We have 300 plus certified response teams in 34 states. Hope AACR is organized into 7 regions. Each region follows national guidelines for delivering AACR services through independent regional management. Okay, go back for a second. All right. Hope allows small stipends to help cover expenses of a deployment. In other words, food, lodging, gas, and tolls, but most of the expenses fall on its members. Hope has in the past and continues to receive grants and donations from the public. The 7 regions that we have are the Eastern United States and the Pacific Southwest. Those are the ones that started back in 2002. Over the years, as Hope grew, we created more demographic regions to meet the needs of the public. Handlers and team leaders must be at least 18 years old. Dogs must be at least 18 months old. Canine teams must be registered and actively involved with a formal animal-assisted therapy group for 1 year prior to the screening. Humans must pass a 3-part background check done by an independent agency to be screened. Dogs must be in good health and have annual vet checks. Documentation will be required. humans must also be able to handle the physical demands of crisis work, long days, walking, and standing. So we felt that at 1 year, the dog is still maturing physically and mentally. So that's why we are requiring at least 18 months. So in order to proceed through the certification process, you must attend an open house. You must submit an application and show us necessary documentation. Successfully complete a screening evaluation. Successfully complete the 3-day regional certification training workshop. And complete all other requirements of HOPE AACR membership, including continuing education. Certification workshops. The workshops are conducted in a positive, supportive manner. Hopefuls are trained in all critical aspects of AACR work. Hopefuls are evaluated for their ability to successfully work in stressful situations. And hopefuls must successfully complete the workshop to join the HOPE AACR. Certification. HOPE requires, as part of the renewal process each year, that all members continue to develop their skills through the year. Field training includes exposure to emergency response vehicles, crisis response drills, transportation training, bus, subways training, airport protocols, interaction with the public, and also debriefing. We provide several role-playing scenarios for the teams to experience. We have a full debriefing is done after the role-playing. In other words, we have questions and answer sessions. First, the core 4. We have our members the first year do the FEMA Incident Command System Course 100, psychological first aid, pet first aid and CPR, and human first aid and CPR. Members are asked to complete these 4 core elements in the first full year of membership. Topics include in our continuing education, crisis intervention, community outreach, agency networking, disaster drills, involvement with other crisis response groups such as VOAD, and canine handling skills. Mental health training for AACR is also included in the continuing education. That's online courses, in person, workshops, or classes. Our teams do not self-deploy. We must be invited by a participating agency such as Red Cross, VOAD, or FEMA. We never provide mental health support services to the client. We are there only to listen and provide comfort through our dogs. We do not take photographs unless a photo release form has been signed by all parties involved in the photo. The only exception is when a client asks for a personal photo with our dogs. We do not receive a copy of the picture. HOPE members are fully covered by HOPE insurance. Here are some of the previous drills and deployments that we were on. Hurricane Katrina was a very large call out. I was self-deployed there for 12 days as regional manager. And so I was in charge of teams and team leaders. When we were there, we realized that telling people that we had therapy dogs with us kind of took people by surprise, and they didn't really want to talk to us because they thought that we were going to give them therapy. So we changed the wording to comfort dogs, and that helped kind of connect the dog and had people a little bit more at ease. A lot was learned from the Virginia Tech deployment. The day after the shooting, every person and their neighbor were on campus with their therapy dog. It caused chaos. The only official crisis group that was invited by the Red Cross and the president of Virginia Tech was HOPE. The president of Virginia Tech finally had to close the campus to only family and HOPE members. Now, if you're calling your dog a therapy dog, then the dog should be registered by a nationally recognized therapy organization, such as Alliance of Therapy Dogs, Pet Partners, and TDI. You are covered by their insurance policy when on an official visit. These organizations do not certify you or your dog. They only register teams. You will have to pass a test and prove by going on several supervised visits that you and your dog are responding appropriately to the public and other dogs in the immediate surroundings. After successfully completing the exercises, you will receive an ID badge or card from the organization. Please do not confuse a therapy dog with a crisis response dog. Crisis response dogs are certified by a national organization that provides workshops and training to be certified as crisis response or comfort dogs. The handler and dog have much more training than is required of a therapy dog. And the words comfort and response, crisis response dogs are pretty much interchangeable. Unfortunately, we have attended many school shootings and school incidents. Superstorm Sandy was a big deployment for our teams. As you can see, many tornadoes in the southeast and the middle of the country. We were deployed for that. The Washington, D.C. Navy Yard shooting was an extremely large deployment for us and lasted several months. Mudslides, train derailments, flooding. The church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. And we're supported FEMA sites at DC headquarters. We deployed to California in response to fires, worked with multiple victims advocates and school systems in multiple states to support individuals in crisis. Okay, let me go back. Okay, in conclusion, every agency should have a plan in place for recruitment of canine teams to help with a crisis in your community. It depends on what type of crisis it is and what organization is best for the present situation. You need to look at the level of physical or mental stress in your clients. Do you need a local therapy dog group if it's a low level of stress? or do you need the certified crisis response dogs for your high or critical level? You should research the available groups in your area and ask them to provide documentation that they are certified and have liability in insurance. Thank you very much for your time, and I apologize for the glitches.
Thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate your time. So now we're going to go to Aline Carr from the City of Virginia Beach.
Hi, everyone. Let me just get my okay. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me okay? Okay. Alrighty, so good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Aline Carr. I work at the Office of Volunteer Resources and Recovery at the City of Virginia Beach. I've been there for 5 years. I've been working in the disaster response field for about 14 years altogether. Prior to joining the city, I worked in the nonprofit sector for organizations like the Volunteer Center in Tucson, the Red Cross, and Humanity Road, where I focused on operations, mass care, and social media in emergency management. So I will be talking today about our experiences using therapy dogs following the mass shooting we had here in Virginia Beach in May 2019. So just for some background, the Virginia Beach city government has a municipal center campus where many of our city government buildings are located. It kind of looks like a community college campus. And whoops. So shortly after 4 p.m. on May 31st, 2019, a City of Virginia Beach government employee entered Building 2 at the Municipal Center campus, and he fatally shot 12 people and severely injured 4 others. Building 2, it's a large building that housed about 400 employees at the time who worked in the departments of Public Works, Public Utilities, Planning, and Information Technology. It's right next door to City Hall, where I work, and across the street from police headquarters and the Department of Emergency Management. So the tragedy not only caused severe trauma for the victims and their families, but also for the hundreds of employees who were there at work that day in the building and who were trying to escape. It also traumatized first responders, including police, EMS, emergency managers, and many other city employees because they had friends and coworkers who were in the building that day.
Bottom left. And you should see the
Kind of disappeared.
and you should be able to use
Hang
your
on.
mouse as well.
Yep, I had a glitch, sorry. Okay, we're back. All right, let me get on the right slide. Sorry about that. So, anyway, my office, the Office of Volunteer Resources and Recovery, we lead the Volunteer and Donations Management Unit when the Emergency Operations Center is activated. We were called in around 8:30 p.m. that day of the shooting because the Emergency Operations Center and other government offices were being inundated with hundreds and hundreds of calls from the public and businesses wanting to volunteer and donate goods and services. In addition to those hundreds of calls, someone had posted on social media that we were in need of therapy dogs and that everyone with a therapy dog needed to come immediately to the municipal center and offer their help. We had not published this need. We had not requested therapy dogs. We were in the initial response phase, which included setting up a family reunification center where families could reunite with loved ones and they could receive information about those missing or people who were deceased. There was an active police response going on, including clearing the building where it happened and determining a way for survivors from the building to be identified and allowed to pick up their cars so they could go home. There were response vehicles everywhere. There were sirens, lights, helicopters, you name it. There was a lot of noise and chaos surrounding not only Building 2, but the whole campus. So through all this, some therapy dog handlers had found the addresses of Building 2, the Emergency Operations Center, and the Family Reunification Center, and they just showed up. They self-deployed, and some were very insistent that, hey, we saw this on social media, that you were in need, and we're here, and we're staying. So why was this a bad thing? Why was this a problem? Why couldn't we just open the doors of the Family Reunification Center and let in the therapy dogs to comfort the people who needed it? So the first problem was we had no clue who these people were. We didn't know if their dogs were actually certified therapy dogs or what kind of training they had. They could have been people who just showed up with their pets. Were these dogs and handlers trained to be in highly stressful situations with a lot of noise, with emergency vehicles? Were they trained to be around highly traumatized and emotional people? We just didn't know. Secondly, the dogs and their handlers were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were hindering first responders. The area was a mass of police and FBI and who needed to focus on their jobs. So they had no time to deal with volunteers and therapy dogs. Thirdly, and most importantly, the press was everywhere, and they were absolutely voracious. They were doing everything possible to gain access to the families of the victims, including trying to get information from volunteers. The city was doing everything possible to protect people from the press. We even had to block off the entrance to the Family Reunification Center with fire trucks to keep the press out. Someone from the press could have posed as a therapy dog handler to gain access to people. We didn't know. Or they could have just pressured therapy dog handlers for information. So what did we do to remedy this situation? Obviously, we had to do some kind of coordination. So the first thing we did was we refused entry the people who brought their dogs, and we very politely asked them to go home, and we asked them to register with Volunteer Hampton Roads. So Volunteer Hampton Roads is our partner in disaster response when it comes to dealing with spontaneous volunteers. They immediately set up an online registration site for us where spontaneous volunteers could pre-register to be involved with recovery efforts. Several days later, we opened up an in-person volunteer reception center using that list of people who registered on Volunteer Hampton Roads. We requested licensed mental health counselors, spiritual counselors, and therapy dog handlers to come to the volunteer reception center. There we interviewed volunteers and we verified IDs, certifications, licenses, all the documents. We then assigned volunteers to be on crisis care teams. Each crisis care team consisted of one licensed mental health counselor, a spiritual counselor like a pastor, and a therapy dog handler, and a therapy dog and a handler. These teams were scheduled throughout each week to visit city buildings where the employees from Building 2 had been relocated. Since Building 2 was an active crime scene, all employees had to be relocated to other city buildings to continue their work. They couldn't even go into the building to get their computers or personal belongings, so it was just stress, even more stress on top of the initial trauma. We also requested assistance from HOPE, Animal Assisted Crisis Response. They sent therapy dog teams who both served on crisis care teams and also made independent visits to Building 2 employees. So how did this help the affected employees? The therapy dogs were amazing. They offered unconditional love and comfort, and they also helped people open up. I mean, it was easier for some people to start a conversation after petting a dog. The dogs were in huge demand. I mean, we just kept getting request after request for therapy dogs. But having the crisis care teams was great because employees could choose to talk to a licensed counselor or a pastor or a therapy dog or all three or none of them, but it gave employees a choice if they wanted to talk to someone or they just wanted to pet a dog. We continued to schedule crisis care teams for a few months after the incident. After the crisis care teams were disbanded, we continued to schedule therapy dog visits for several more months after that. So, lessons learned. We learned a lot from this tragedy. We're always happy to share our lessons learned, and although we hope that other municipalities don't have to use these lessons learned, at least for not this type of incident. The first thing is you should immediately publish information as widely as possible that volunteers should not self-deploy, and that includes therapy dog handlers. Having a place for them to register online and await further information is very helpful. Partnering with a local volunteer center is a great way to do that if they have that capacity. Pardon me. Secondly, it's okay to turn volunteers away if they self-deploy. If you're not ready yet to verify credentials and engage them in a meaningful way, just be polite and ask them to register or wait for further information. You know, they should not be allowed to hinder first responders, and you don't want them going into an unsafe situation. Also, like Jill actually said already in her presentation, have a plan ready for how you're going to verify therapy dogs. Know the different organizations that provide certifications. That includes Therapy Dogs International and Pet Partners, and there's quite a few others. Know the differences between the different categories and terms for certified and trained dogs. There's so many. There's emotional support animals, comfort dogs, therapy dogs, crisis response dogs, service dogs, working dogs. Sorry, I keep jumping slides, but it's important to know the different terms so that when you're putting out information, you can put out the right information and make the right request. Also create partnerships with those trusted crisis response dog organizations like HOPE, who focus, all their work on responding to emergencies and disasters. And on top of that, create partnerships with local therapy dog groups and handlers who may be able to support you in long-term recovery. For example, in Virginia Beach, the Sotera Hospital Network has a group of therapy dog handlers who were already verified. And when we needed more dogs, we were able to call on them to help because they were willing to help long-term since they lived locally. So that they were a huge help to us. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. My email address is alcar@vbgov.com in case anyone wants to reach out. Be sure to save your questions for the end of the panel, and I'm now going to turn it back over to Adriania.
Thank you so much. That was really great. We appreciate your time. You can just drop any questions you have in the chat. I am collecting them all in a lovely Word document, and then we will get them at the end. And now we're going to go to our very own Amy Lane, the Blue Ridge MRC coordinator. Thank you.
Hello, all. Make sure I get my screen up here. There we go. My name is Amy Lane. I am the Blue Ridge Health District MRC coordinator. I have been with VDH for 2 years, but have been in healthcare management for the past 25 years. So a lot of experience in kind of dealing with a lot of the emergencies that do come up. Now that I'm in emergency management and helping all of you do what you do and volunteer how you volunteer, it has been a wonderful place to go to. Let's get started. So, unfortunately, like everybody else here, there was a reason that we had, that we needed therapy dogs in Blue Ridge Health District. So thank you for letting me talk about some of the successes that we've had here in Blue Ridge Health District. A lot of our experience with therapy dogs comes from our district's use of them during the UVA shooter event in November of last year. The following presentation will be how we responded to this event and the subsequent recovery of the UVA academics. There we go. On Sunday, November 13th, 2022, an active shooter event happened on the grounds of the University of Virginia. 5 students were shot, 2 survived their injuries, and 3 did not. Blue Ridge Health District and the Medical Reserve Corps responded to this emergency tragedy. The Blue Ridge Health District immediately offered our professional volunteer services. The MRC was able to secure 6 licensed mental health professionals within 2 hours of posting the event. UVA needed licensed professionals to staff the Student Center during the memorial service on November 19th for Devon Chandler, Deshaun Perry, and LaBelle Davis Jr. MRC professionals were able to support and supplement the UVA Counseling and Psychological Services CAPS program. UVA requested therapy dogs as an ongoing request for the student and staff recovery process. What we learned in this process is there's no official VDH vendor for deploying or procuring therapy dogs or handlers. The best VDH resource was the Office of Emergency Medical Services, OEMS, who has the following brochure, the one on the slide here, And it states specifically, we have health and medical emergency response teams throughout the state that will bring specialized emergency response members and equipment to your community. We even have therapy dog teams to help responders relieve stress, but it was all for the responders and not for the victims of what was going on. As we researched therapy dogs to supplement the UVA students and faculty, Blue Ridge Health District reached out to many organizations, the Office of Emergency Preparedness, Virginia Department of Emergency Management, Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Victim Services, these are really long, Service Dogs of Virginia, the Lutheran Church Charity Canine Comfort Dog Ministry, VCU Dogs on Call, who sent us to Pet Partners and Alliance of Pet Therapy Dogs, you heard about those earlier, Charlottesville Albemarle Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, their pet therapy teams, and the Hope Animal Assisted Crisis Response. We heard from Jill, the first person to speak in our presentation today. As you can see, this was not a linear process. This was not an easy process. Through the many bumps in the road, we discovered Blue Ridge Health District needed to complete an official request form to provide therapy dogs to UVA academics. Throughout this entire process, there was not a shortage of agencies that were willing to help us. There was always someone who'd be willing to give another number, another contact, another person. The partner that we found the most help was VCU Health. Just like Aline found in Virginia Beach, they were local, or at least more local. There we go. Their Dogs on Call program provides therapy dogs to patients at the VCU hospitals. So I have a couple of different websites. I will put them in the chat so that you have them. The first one is the Meet the Dogs Center for Virginia Commonwealth University. Adorable dogs. My absolute favorite is Zeke. He is adorable, but as you scroll through the list, you'll see there's quite a few dogs that are there. All of these are certified, all of them ready to deploy. So I know this is a very busy slide. I promise I will get you the slides so you can peruse those websites more frequent or more intensely. Virginia Tech was also a great resource. Unfortunately, as you heard earlier, they had their own active shooter emergency on April 16th, 2007. Virginia Tech was very willing to share the process that they took and the recovery process of their campus since 2007. The emergency manager and the MRC coordinator for the New River Health District were happy to share their successes and their stumbling blocks. Therapy dogs were a significant help then and continue to be integrated into the Virginia Tech campus. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to attach I'll attach the video to the chat and it'll be sent out to you on the slide deck, but there's a short video here that shows what an established program can do to help their community. Oh gosh, sorry. Let's do the next slide. There we go. As we move from the process of obtaining therapy dogs for the UVA students, we go to the recovery process. The official UVA memorial service was held the weekend before Thanksgiving break. During this time, Blue Ridge Health District provided intensive scheduling with the therapy dogs and handlers. There were 5 dates that the students were able to use this service. Students ended up going home for winter break. Upon coming back to the grounds, UVA realized that the students needed emotional stress and psychological support getting back to class. Blue Ridge Health District and the Hope Therapy Dogs were able to give 3 more weeks of support to the students while transitioning back into their academic life. The UVA Strong Fund was administered by the UVA Alumni Association as a way to support their victims and survivors and their families, to provide services to students in the wake of a tragedy and honor those who died on November 13th. Therapy dogs were part of this recovery. A direct quote from a UVA alumni said, "Our hearts are broken, but together we will mend our spirits." What changes have occurred since this tragic event? MRC has made many community connections. We discussed the whole list, that big long list of them that we talked about earlier. Virginia Department of Emergency Management has signed legal documents called Memorandum of Agreement and Memorandum of Understanding with reputable licensed companies that provide therapy dogs. And most importantly, in Blue Ridge Health District, we have collaborated with the city and county and UVA academics to support pet therapy services. Blue Ridge Health District has worked with the state MRC and the VVHS system to begin to create groups and roles in the VVHS system for the MRC volunteers. Roles that will allow volunteers to sign up as registered handlers for your furry therapy dogs and/or horses in the system. They don't all have to be dogs. This allows alerts to go directly to the appropriate volunteers and not be sent out as a widely broadcast alert. We have educational programs like the one you're on tonight to shine a light on and boost support for these specialized programs. So you do need special skills. Jill talked about these earlier. These skills are taken directly from the Pet Partners website. Again, these slides will be provided to you so you can review this lengthy list. I know there's a lot to read here. You heard earlier some of these same requirements from Jill with the HOPE Animal Assisted Crisis Response. Some of the education that the HOPE Assisted Crisis Response requires are offered for free from MRC. Your CPR class, your ICS 100 class, the mental health first aid class. You can ask your MRC coordinator for dates for these classes are provided. I know for sure that we just offered on last Thursday the mental health first aid class. So it's a pretty amazing class that you can be able to take. These are the attributes that are taken directly from the Pet Partners website on what it needs to be a therapy dog. I know the slide's busy, but I think it's important to know what's required from the pets to be therapy pets. It can be quite rigorous, and even the best of our family pets do not qualify for the program. Even some service dogs will not pass these tests. What makes a family pet does not necessarily make a good therapy dog. I know I have my own dog. She wouldn't pass any of these. She definitely would not pass the test. She's spoiled, but she wouldn't pass the test. There are several ways to certify yourself and your therapy pet. Virginia Department of Emergency Management approved vendor is HOPE Animal Assisted Crisis Response to utilize certified therapy pets and their handlers. These email addresses will direct you to their training program. VCU uses Alliance of Pet Therapy Dogs and Pet Partners to vet and certify their volunteers. These emails will direct you to the training programs. I'll make sure that Adrenia sends this slide deck out so you have all of these resources. All of these organizations walk you through the process of training and certifying your therapy pets and give resources for keeping the certification current. This certification will not only apply to the MRC, but it also applies to anywhere else you'd want to volunteer, such as the dogs that go out to the Virginia Tech or that go out to Richmond, that go out in Richmond. But you can take them anywhere as a pet therapy handler. It does not have to just be used as an MRC. How does this apply directly to MRC? As you've heard from Aline from Virginia Beach and have learned from MRC education, do not self-deploy. I think we've heard that in every single one of these programs. We never self-deploy. We've been taught that just as an MRC volunteer. As Virginia Tech has shown, dog therapy is an enduring service that continues to make an impact on their campus even 17 years later. This picture of therapy dogs and their handlers was taken at the 2023 dorm move-in day at Virginia Tech just 2 months ago. Adopting this program has made a difference locally. The therapy dogs and their handlers make a difference. You as MRC have a new and rewarding way to deploy to your community. Therapy dogs have had many uses that may include being a calming comfort to nursing home patient, deploying to a weather shelter, or even just deploying to community events. A few that Blue Ridge Health District has discussed are as Mount Walks for Life, back-to-school vaccination clinics, health fairs, and school events. Be on the lookout for these changes and adaptations of service dogs into more MRC events. I would like to give a sincere thank you to all of the MRC volunteers who've attended this educational training. I appreciate you all. I am sure some of you have questions, and I see them popping up in the comments. I'll try to get to them and make sure that we send out answers to you all. Kate, I'm sending the microphone back to you for the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. So there is one question that's for all of the participants, and they can just put the answer in the chat if you want, which is how many volunteers experienced having therapy or comfort dogs at FACS clinics when you were volunteering in 2021 and 2022? You can just throw that in the chat just so we can get an idea. And then Amy, we have one question for you. Will UVA be utilizing comfort dogs as the anniversary of the incident is coming up?
We have not heard yet. We have offered, but we have not heard back from UVA. So as soon as we hear back from them, we have offered that service, and yes, it is coming up very, very quickly.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, then I have one question for Aline. Did Virginia Beach provide a rest area for the comfort dogs and their handlers?
I'm not sure about the context of that. With the crisis care teams, we did not have like a crisis care team stay at a facility for like 8 hours straight. It was scheduled in like 2-hour blocks. So a crisis care team, which included a therapy dog and handler, were there from like say 10 to 12. And then there would be another team from like 1 to 3. And we would just tell the employees, you know, that these teams will be here at these times. So we did not want to, you know, create fatigue with any of our crisis team members, including therapy dog handlers. So we just had a lot of scheduling to do.
A lot of overlap. Great, thank you so much. And then Jill, we have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Okay, great. The first question is, can the application start when the dog is 1 year old with the expectation that the entire process will take 6 to 12 months when the dog would then be 18 months old? Or do they have to start at 18 months?
For HOPE is that your dog have 1 year of experience with regular therapy work. So the organizations, the national organizations, do not register your dog until they're 1 year old. So you have to have 1 year experience before you can apply for HOPE application and get into the workshop. Once you apply for it, it's not that long of a time to actually go through the workshop, but we give you 1 year as a member to fulfill all of the necessary requirements. So it takes about 1 year, your first year, to complete all of your requirements. So that's why we ask for 18 months.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you so much. And then the other question was about breeds. So what breeds other than Lab and Goldens have been certified? Is it breed specific?
Oh, no, not in HOPE. We have shelters dogs. We have tiny dogs, large dogs. We have mutts. As long as they have that personality and the requirements that we're looking for, we'll take 3-legged dogs. We'll take any dog that can provide comfort in the requirements that we have for HOPE.
Great.
We had a wonderful, just for example, we had a wonderful pit bull about 10 years ago who was an ambassador for her breed. Unfortunately, she died at an early age, but the dog was a phenomenal crisis response dog.
We did get one more question come in. I think it's pretty appropriate for you. Some clients do not desire interaction with the dog. Does therapy comfort dog training include understanding that they must only approach when a client welcomes them to?
Very good question. When I was in New York City after 9/11, I was down at Pier 94, and this was a ground where people were coming for information. It was not at Ground Zero. We were told, do not approach anyone. These are family members looking for information. Just stand back. And believe me, the dogs were the magnet. People came to want to pet our dogs. And we saw that at Katrina too. It was the bridge to connect the human and the dog.